We've just taken tours of these 5 amazing blockchain data providers. Now it's time to compare them and ask which of them is right for you. This series was made possible by Token Engineering Academy, who asked me to contribute to their newsletter on this subject. You can subscribe to that newsletter in the description section below. It was also made possible by the generosity of these data providers, who not only gave us special exclusive access, but time and access to their team members for support as well. And by the way, many of these guys offered exclusive discounts to their products in partnership with Token Engineering Academy. You can find information about those in the description section below. Let's look at our agenda for today. We're going to begin with a short recap of our motivations, in case you're only just tuning into this last video of the series. Then we'll conduct a platform comparison from the point of view of someone who's highly cost-conscious, and then make another comparison from the point of view of someone who has enough budget to pay for anything and everything, but will only do that if it really returns value for their work as a data-led tokenomics analyst or engineer. I've provided timestamps to each of these sections in the description section below. Great, so motivations recap first. Most data platforms have grown up serving the needs of investors and traders who are active in digital asset exchange markets. And so understandably, the focus has been on serving data that's generated by exchange market activity. But those needs are quite different to the ones we have as token economy analysts. As someone who is interested in tokenomics and crypto economic systems, my field of interest is a little broader, right? Because if we do have a process or system that's being used by people for more than just making speculative trades on a centralized or decentralized exchange, we have all these other processes that are also present and involved. If we want to learn about these systems, learn how to build them better or to analyze them to see if they're going well or badly, we are going to benefit from having a direct data view onto all this other stuff, because you can't make it out properly if your only view into the system is based on what shows up in the exchange markets. As I've explained in an earlier video, one of the exciting things about blockchain technology is that in a certain sense, economic actions and data are the same thing. You can't take actions on the blockchain without changing its data, and all the actions you take leave an immutable, unhackable data trail, which in that sense represents a trustworthy log of blockchain activity. And because of the way that blockchains were engineered, the default setting for that data is typically public, meaning that economic activity on blockchains is in a significant way openly self-reporting and publicly queryable. So just by making use of those data, we can begin to construct a more direct view on the other processes that are at work in this larger economic system. Luckily, the same traders and investors that make up the main user base for those data providers are also beginning to take an interest in this data too. This makes complete sense. It's what we see in TradFi or traditional finance. Many investors make decisions based on what they read in the financial accounts of publicly traded companies. The financial accounts represent a data record that provides a direct view on the business activities of that company, again, as opposed to the data that comes out of exchange markets. All this context helps set the focus for my reviews. I wanted to look at how new data streams are helping to expand visibility into crypto economic processes beyond exchange markets. Examine the intellectual leadership that these data providers are demonstrating with the creation of new methods, measures, and metrics that they are creating to achieve this. And then finally, from an analyst and engineering perspective, I looked at how easy it is to extract data from these platforms so that you can work and analyze it for yourself. Each of these providers are incredibly different to one another, and they all have very different strengths as well. So we can't avoid it in some circumstances. The answer to which of these is the best for you is going to be, it depends. But I'm not going to shortchange you today by leaving it at that. I think there is a lot we can say to help give you some initial orientation to help your decision making. Let's begin with something that I haven't mentioned in all those review videos, but which is definitely an important, if not the dominant factor in our considerations: price. This table gives you a pricing breakdown and select feature summary for each of the products offered by the providers that we covered. There's a lot of detail on here, so don't worry about taking it all in right here. The key points will emerge as we talk through our comparisons. I've provided you with a web link in the description section if you want to download it for yourself. The tours I've filmed demonstrated features that are available on the most exclusive and premium tiers, but today I also want to consider the features of the free and mid-tier offerings as well, so that's where they're included in this table. Now, if you just eyeball this, you can see that there is a pretty wide spread in prices ranging from free to over 10,000 US dollars per year for the most exciting and comprehensive service. So how do we review an offering that's as diverse as this? What's affordable or expensive comes down to circumstance, and of those there are many. But I think we can get a good grip on the question by examining it from the point of view of two hypothetical situations. In the first case, we are income constrained. We're looking to minimize costs and maximize anything and everything that we can get for free, because it's incredibly amazing, but there really is a lot of high quality data and services that we can access for free. But if they are not good quality, we shouldn't rush to use them just because they're free, so we'll be careful about that. In the second case, we have enough budget to spend on anything and everything that you saw in that table, but we still want to think carefully about what value we get for the price we pay, specifically as data-oriented tokenomics analysts and engineers. And remember, that's a different kind of user profile to the one that most of these platforms have grown up to serve. So let's begin with the freebie first approach. Again, it's just astounding how much data you can get for free, absolutely free. Data from ordinary financial markets was always gated by these unbelievably expensive platforms, and here, a lot of it is just literally free. I'm sure that a lot of this comes down to the fundamental data economics of blockchain itself. As I was saying, a lot of this data really is just already out there in some form on the chain. That means that there are really low barriers to people coming in and undercutting some other provider who is trying to sell that data at a higher price. This creates a very different kind of long-term competitive environment for these data providers compared to ones in the conventional business world. In this game, blockchain data providers can only preserve themselves and their businesses if they create real value add on top of that raw data that is easily and commonly available, because anything simple would just be eaten up by a cheaper competitor at some point. But paradoxically, I think that could end up harming us, because if there are no easy data to profit off reliably, high value add services will only be deliverable at full cost. But that's speculation, so let's see. The star contender in this free tier offering is, of course, DeFi Llama, a platform that started its life leveraging the public nature of DeFi smart contracts like those used to operate decentralized exchanges, and reporting these data that were recorded on-chain by the operation of those contracts. Truly, I think it's unreal that we get all the data that we have on DeFi Llama for free, but this free-to-access service still comes at a cost. I found it really hard to get data out consistently and in a usable format. The API serves an interesting range of end data points that go well beyond conventional exchange market data, but it comes nowhere near to the breadth of data that's tantalizingly shared with you on the platform UI. It can create this kind of look but don't touch experience, which can feel very frustrating if you are excited by some data that you've seen and it's inspiring lots of interesting questions, but you can't extract it to explore further. Token Terminal and Artemis have much better ratios in this regard between the amount of data that's available on their web platform UIs and the data that you can actually export out into a workable format. But again, maybe you're lucky and the specific data that you want is on DeFi Llama and is accessible and extractable just the way you want it to be. For example, consider the fact that VC funding and fundraising data is available on DeFi Llama for free, and I can download the whole thing. And yet, this data coverage is something that Messari and Token Terminal are showcasing to drive the value proposition of their paid tiers. The next star of our free-to-access lineup is Artemis. Less well-known than DeFi Llama and serving a smaller data set, but I can tell you as a data-oriented user, I prefer Artemis in every way. If I was free and free only in search of data, I'd look on Artemis first and then go to DeFi Llama if I needed to. The UI on Artemis is blissfully clean and well ordered. Everything on it is downloadable in CSV format from what I've seen at least. However, the free version does pinch you quite fast and quite hard, limiting you at just 3 CSV downloads per month. But to me, it seems like this is massively offset by the 10,000 calls you get on their spreadsheet formulas per month on the free tier. And remember, these formulas pull in data from CoinGecko, DeFi Llama, and Artemis's own data streams. So as long as your work does not require you to have up-to-the-minute data, it's very likely that you could pull a good volume of interesting and useful data on the free tier. Okay, time to turn to token unlocks. What do their value proposition look like from the point of view of a cash-constrained user? Remember, we get vesting and unlocks data for free on DeFi Llama. So that would imply that we don't need token unlocks, right? Well, I don't agree. DeFi Llama's handling of this data just feels incredibly basic, and token unlocks, on the other hand, are adding so much value to this dataset. They're only asking for $50 a month for their pro service, so if that's all you need for your work, I'm sure this would be acceptable in many cash-constrained circumstances. But the important caveat to add here is that the data exporting capabilities on token unlocks are only going to be made available on a separate pricing tier. So if you need those export features for your work, you're going to have to weigh in the added cost once that price is announced to see if that works for you. But all the same, token unlocks are still a unique data provider in this space, and nobody else is offering quite as much value around this data set at the moment. Okay, let's take stock of where we've gotten to for a moment. At this point, we've actually managed to get a lot for free. All of these data providers have offered us a good range of market data, major token supply statistics, token unlocks data, other non-supply related fundamentals data. That really is a lot. If I'm still missing something, only then would I be taking a look at Token Terminal or Messari if I am this ultra cost-conscious consumer. But ultimately, if that data is super important to what I'm trying to do and it's nowhere else, I will either need to pay for it or figure out how to extract it from on-chain data for myself if that's possible. Which brings us to another point I think we should be touching on. There are incredible open free data platforms that allow you to query on-chain data for yourselves, like Dune, Flipside, Covalence Increment, but they are fundamentally different to the services that we've been reviewing in terms of how data is accessed and consumed. Using these platforms comes with significant trade-offs. Yes, you get access to data in a much more open and powerful way, but you need some SQL chops to be able to do that and an understanding of smart contracts that allows you to decode the raw data into something that's economically meaningful, and of course the extra time to check your work to make sure that the quality of your data is up to a point where it's usable and consumable for your analysis and engineering. So now consider that if these on-chain data have already been processed and quality controlled by these paid-for data platforms who have done all that work for you, this is very significant value add that you should not dismiss just for the benefit of getting a free service on these query platforms. Okay, time to look at this from the other point of view as someone with budget to spend, but who also wants to spend that budget with care, making sure that we make choices that really match up with our needs. Now, I know this guy doesn't look like he'd give a damn about value, quite frankly, but I think you get the drift. So let's start from the other end this time with the most premium and exclusive service in our table, Messari Enterprise. You get incredible top-grade reports, and you get a service that really is bringing TradFi culture and attention to detail to everything they do. But I have to say, if I am a data-oriented user, this really doesn't feel like it's the right platform for me in its current form. Sadly, it's too hard to extract and interact with all the amazing data that they have on there. Now, I should acknowledge that they are only just at the beginning of their work of building their own API service, but the fact that such a large and high-profile platform is only beginning to do this now says something about the product concept and philosophy that has guided them this far. So much of the platform has been built to be something else, to create an amazing premium class service, but for a completely different kind of customer. it really feels like they would have to do a lot of work to create an offering that supports data extraction at use at that same standard, given all the other platforms and competition doing that out there. Personally, I feel it's a big shame because coming from a TradFi background myself, I really value the critical eye approach and culture that Messari are bringing to the space, and it would be amazing to have those assets driving the creation of an offering that is more data-led. But I guess that's why we have a market, guys. One product can't be all things to all people. So, in my opinion, Token Terminal and Artemis both exemplify the kind of data offering experience that I personally find valuable. I absolutely love the UI and UX for both of them. And in both cases, even though I might be able to find the data I'm after for free on DeFi Llama, given that I have a budget in this scenario, I would definitely feel happy paying for a UI that allows me to download this data consistently, reliably, and to navigate data on the platform in a much more efficient, decluttered manner, and also in a way that gives me a really high level of choice and agency over the data views that I wish to construct. Both their pro services come in at around the same price, so let's imagine we only had budget to spend on one of them. Which would you choose? Well, there's not a clear way to decide that just on the volume of data available. So you would have to look at the data they serve you to check that they have what you really need. You should also reflect on how you are planning to extract data and use it, because they offer very different things in this regard. Token Terminal places no limitations on the number of CSV files exported, while Artemis still does impose a limit of 30 CSV exports per month on their tier. But on the other hand, with Artemis, you get the benefit of 300,000 ARD calls per month, and the added bonus of this being available in your spreadsheet environment if that's your weapon of choice for data analysis. Artemis Sheets is basically a spreadsheet interface for API data. That's how the backend works. Their formulas pull in from other great APIs and now Dune queries as well. So if that's how you're going to consume and use your data, it is a much more cost-effective option than going with Token Terminal's API, which is not included in its Pro tier and is priced separately and at a premium for €10,000 per year. That reflects the premium that active market participants are going to pay for performant real-time data streams. But as a tokenomics analyst or engineer, those data feed characteristics may not be of value to you. And at the same time, there is also a considerable chance that you can find the data that you need using Artemis Sheet. Let's now turn to look at Token Terminal's Data Room product, their new SQL platform. It is likewise offered as a premium service at a premium price. You need to call in to check in what that is depending on your specific needs, but essentially expect the API price and above. Again, this premium reflects the extra chain coverage, the fact that they have curated these data tables themselves and organized them in a tidy layout, unlike what you see on Dune. It also comes from the fact that Token Terminal are running their own nodes to get the data in more highly performant ways, which allows them to deliver this service with a service level agreement guarantee which commits to the performance of this data service. But at the end of the day, if your data needs do not require all those real-time and performance attributes, it's hard to see how that price is going to be worth it. You'll probably have to swallow the modest inconveniences of finding the right data tables on those other free and open SQL platforms. Part of this also reflects on the fact that at this stage, the tables in Token Terminal's data room are still quite low level. They comprise raw blockchain event tables and decoded smart contract tables. If Token Terminal were able to expand this and invest in building and maintaining a richer and broader data schema that folds in other off-chain data, or natively calculates and serves some of the richer economic metrics that we can find on their web platform UI, that's where I see the value of this data room product, creating a value proposition that would outcompete what's currently available on other open and community-sourced query platforms, even when service quality and up-to-dateness of data is not a factor. But I understand that this is a risky race to run, given that the competition is also making moves in that direction while retaining a free access model. If I were Token Terminal, I'm sure I would be focusing on serving customers who do place a premium on coverage and highly performant data streams as a less risky way to build out this service and platform in the short to medium term. Nevertheless, I think we should also take a look at Nansen, who also have a SQL product, which sheds light on this question. Fortunately, we weren't able to get Nansen on board for this review because they were in the middle of a new product launch. The docs they have on the SQL product, Nansen Query, look really thorough and are open available. If we look there, we find that they don't just have data tables for raw events and decoded contracts like Token Terminal do at present. They also have NFT data, governance data, aggregate measures, address-oriented tables, and more, which makes this a much more powerful set of data to relate in really interesting and creative ways. This offering is provided at an enterprise tier, which is also custom priced. And given that it sits above their alpha tier, which is served at $24,000 a year, it's probably going to be more than. So I suppose this validates the idea that there really is a market for this kind of product and value add that can be well defended, albeit at a price. So I really hope Token Terminal rise to the occasion and compete in this area with their data room offering, because there's evidently a lot of insight and analytical intelligence on their team, judging by the amazing metrics and UI experience on their web platform product, the Token Terminal. So the next platform to consider from a value perspective is Token Unlocks. Now, if I have already chosen to pay for a Token Terminal subscription, I will have already gained access to token unlock data presented in a nice format that beats what I would get with DeFi Llama. So would there be any need or point in paying for a token unlock service? Well, if I really needed this data for my work, I would say it's a yes. As I keep on saying, they do an excellent job of adding value to this data set, and they are the only platform that's doing this. So I could see myself paying for the upcoming data export tier on top of the other services by other providers that I've paid for so far. And last but not least, don't forget, we still have DeFi Llama. Would I still be using this service even with all the other amazing things I've paid for up to this point? Well, I think I would. I would still be checking on DeFi Llama to see what's going on up there. They seem to be actively working on how to source funding, so there may be some improvements to their platform which are coming, and I wouldn't be surprised if they deploy that in other valuable and creative ways, keeping everybody on their toes. They have been a major disruptor to this space. And, well, that covers it. It's a wrap when it comes to deciding which data provider and data provider tier is right for you in the end. The TLDR on everything I just said was, it depends. But hopefully this exploration gave you some guiding orientation to help shorten the time that you spend weighing up all the factors for yourself. There are some amazing offers out there, and it is just extraordinary that so much data is available for free, with paid service still delivering very substantial value add for their price with their products. These offerings definitely create meaningful access for analysts who want to teach themselves and to develop independently, something that was definitely not possible in traditional finance even just a decade or two ago. And the range of data offered and served is definitely expanding into broader parts of the token economy beyond exchanges, which allows us to start taking a much more empirical approach to the way we design, engineer, and analyze those token-based economies. Massive thanks once again to Token Engineering Academy and team members from all these data providers who once again helped to make this research piece possible. It gave me the push to go and see what's going on in this area in detail and think critically about it. And it has made me really excited to see just how much it's possible to do today, and be even more excited about the brighter prospects that lie ahead in the very near future.